CIGTV News Update. I'm Donna Bush. Glad you could join me this Friday. We begin with the recent graduation of 4 new customs officers. Following 3 months of intensive training, 4 recruits have graduated as government's new custom officers. Monique Barnett, Christopher Miles, Jerome Bodden, and George Jackson received their epaulets and pins, as well as their certificates at a graduation ceremony to signify their entry into the service this week. Minister of Finance and Economic Development, the Honourable Marco Archer, encouraged them to apply the customs laws and regulations fairly and fearlessly, urging them as well to aim to advance throughout their customs career. He cautioned them too, telling them to avoid temptation and corruption in conducting their duties. Mr. Langley Powery also congratulated the graduates for a job well done and reminded them that the Customs Department is part of a global customs organization linked to international trade. In other news, since the start of the week, accounting and management staff from a wide cross-section of the Ministry of Home Affairs have been benefiting from fraud prevention and detection training. The course arranged by the ministry's finance team back in January will focus on areas of performing comprehensive fraud risk assessments, detecting a wide variety of internal fraud and corruption, including but not limited to purchasing and acquisition fraud, payroll fraud, check fraud, and reporting fraud. Facilitator Alan Keeley explains one of several reasons why it's important to get this type of training.
So let's go to the clear and obvious, and that is cost. Fraud is a human condition. Fraud is not something that needs something to cause it to happen. It's something that happens by default if you don't stop it. So that means it's already here. It's already running. And on Monday, we actually went through a whole day of fraud risk assessment to try to determine, well, what do we have in place that would stop fraud from happening if it's going to happen on its own anyway? And as we went through this fraud risk assessment, we found out that we had precious little in place to stop fraud, which means that if we don't have it, it'd be a miracle because it is there on its own. One of the primary reasons why it's there on its own is a lot of the fraud, the people that are doing it, what they do, they don't even consider fraud. So everybody thinks fraud, oh, that's when you know it's a bad thing. Well, if it's not a bad thing, then it's not fraud, right? Right. And what I'm doing isn't such a bad thing, so that's not fraud. You know, everybody does it. And if everybody does it, then it can't be a bad thing. So this is where this environment develops, where you'll have a lot of what we actually know and understand is fraud and abuse, but nobody really looks at it as fraud and abuse because, well, it's just not wrong. But it is wrong. And so consequently, this requires then an adjustment to even the culture of an organization to understand what right and wrong really is, not just what is accepted practice.
Well, Home Affairs Chief Financial Officer Vincent Chinsey says it's critical that their staff receive this training to make them better equipped with the leading techniques to manage the risk of fraud. The training ends next week. Well, on Thursday, the Office of the Complaints Commissioner held an annual ICP seminar and award ceremony. All internal complaints officers are offered the chance to be a part of the seminar, which encourages good governance and customer service within the civil service.
As public servant, we all have a duty to perform our jobs professionally, courteously, and respectfully. Even if you have a client who is irate or who's treating you rudely, you do not respond to them in same. So that, we want to encourage government employees, basically, that you don't do that. You know, there is a way to go about doing certain things. We want to do it professionally. And right now we're trying to re-image the civil service. So this would be a great opportunity. And I thought it was a great topic for us to at least cater to the needs of our civil servants as well as those dealing with complaints.
In the past, we used to recognize the work of maybe 3 or 4 outstanding ICP managers, but going forward, we actually want to recognize each and every ICP manager that contributes to the process. You know, they not only help reduce the amount of complaints that come into our office, but they also assist in improving the public service, you know, on a whole. The customer service to the public is improved through the internal complaints process because the customers have an avenue that they can go to and file a complaint if they're not happy with the service that they're receiving from the public. service.
This year's main topic, again, focused on how not to respond to your complainant. The topic was chosen this year to remind civil servants that although there may be times when they are faced with dealing with difficult or irate customers, they cannot respond to the customer in the same manner. Finally, if you missed our news update today, you can get all the details on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. Please don't forget to tune into Radio Cayman's talk shows. That's For the Record and Talk Today, week mornings and weekdays. For now, I'm Donna Bush, wishing you a wonderful and, of course, a safe weekend. Thanking you once again for joining me this entire week and hoping you'll do the same again next week. Until then, bye-bye for now.